Hey everyone, thank you for coming and joining us on my first Substack, 8 Above Substack case study. Super excited to have Kurt Ravenwood with us today, who is one of the producers and also ran the distribution and marketing of Hundreds of Beavers, which has been a breakout success for independent film in the last year. And yeah, I'm just super excited to get going. Kurt's a producer originally from northern Wisconsin. He now operates between Milwaukee and Los Angeles. He started, after graduating from UW-Milwaukee's Film and New Media program, he started a production company that he turned into a boutique creative agency called SRH. So we're going to talk about Hundreds of Beavers in 3 main phases. I'm hoping that everyone is somewhat familiar with the film, but I'm going to have Kurt talk about it shortly, just do an introduction of it. So we're going to talk about the 3 main phases of the release. First is festivals. Secondly, what they refer to as their roadshow and their theatrical release. And then third, their video on demand, their VOD release. Those are the 3 main phases that they've had to date. And then at the end, we'll talk about the other phases that are still to come and what they're planning for that. So Kurt, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, John. And thanks to you for everything you're doing for independent producers and filmmakers, man. It's really cool.
Cool. Happy to do it. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about the movie, how the project started, just a short introduction, because I know we want to get into the distribution case study, but just a little bit about how your project originated and what your initial hopes were for it.
Absolutely. So Hundreds of Beavers is a movie co-written by Mike Cheslick and Ryland Tews, 2 Wisconsin filmmakers. I saw their first movie, which they made for $7,000 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, called Lake Michigan Monster, which is a total blast. I saw it at a film festival and I fell in love with their style and their humor and their ability to make a big movie for not a lot of money. Mike is an After Effects genius. So we started talking in a bar and they pitched me their next movie, which they jokingly pitched as The Revenant, but funny. Hundreds of Beavers is about an Applejack salesman who his Applejack distillery blows up. We're in the 1800s, by the way. His Applejack distillery blows up and he has to go from zero to hero to become America's greatest fur trapper. The entire movie is black and white. There is no dialogue whatsoever. There's music and sound, but no dialogue. And all the animals in the movie, all the animals he has to fur trap are played by our friends wearing beaver and bunny and raccoon mascot costumes, like what you would see in a college sports game. So it becomes this really kind of hilarious live action Looney Tunes kind of movie. And yeah, I hope everyone gets a chance to see it. It's currently streaming, but I'm excited to tell you about how we got to this point today.
Yeah, great. So what was your goal for the release of the film? Did you have an initial goal when you're making the film for the release of the film? And then, what was that goal when you're about to start the festival process?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we see each other as small businessmen, right? Like, so we raised $150,000 from friends and family and friends of friends in Milwaukee. And our sole purpose and goal was to make that money back for them, right? Make the money back for the investors so that they could then feel convinced that it would be worth it to put a little bit more money down on the next one, right? So we could kind of build a career on that. So our real primary goal was making that money back.
Right. And did that change over the course of the release at all? Or no, my understanding, that's been your goal. So did anyone tell you about the terrible state of independent film distribution before you started making this film?
Well, the movie took a few years to make. I first met Mike and Ryland in late 2018, so it's been 6 years now. And they shot the movie slowly over 2 winters in the northern Wisconsin. So 2020, 21, right? We were slowed down by the pandemic. And then Mike did over 1,500 effect shots. So like the industry was changing kind of behind us and we weren't really paying close attention to it. And so when we did hit the market shortly after COVID, it really seemed like doom and gloom. Like everyone we would talk to was just really in low spirits. The market was down. People weren't getting a lot of big minimum guarantees anymore. So we kind of ran headfirst into what I've heard some people say one of the most difficult indie film markets ever. And so when we had no idea, like we were completely blindsided by that. We thought this was going to be the classic dream where you go and you sell the movie to a distributor, they give you a guarantee that you can pay your investors back and then they take care of it. And that just wasn't going to happen for us.
Right. Yeah. So, and you're not alone in that. And
Hmm.
when you were starting out, who did you think the audience for the film would be?
Well, I think we really thought the core audience would be Midwesterners. We were doing a winter movie with physical comedy and pratfalls and poop jokes and just like real fun, what we called like working class blue collar humor. And so, Mike, the director, would often say, I'm trying to make a movie for Midwest dads. And so that's kind of what we thought our core audience was going to be coming out into it.
Mhm. Right. Okay, great. And then we'll talk about how your conception of your audience changed over time. But did
Yeah.
you do anything, did you alter the film at all initially to kind of, or did you do anything in the planning stages or even during the production to address that audience? Or did you feel like the film already fit that audience?
We weren't, I'm going to be honest, we weren't really thinking I would change this in projects moving forward, but we were not thinking deeply about building an audience while we were making the movie. That's something I would do differently next time. We were just focusing on getting it done.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So let's see. If we can keep on trying to mute people in the background, that would be great. So just if everyone, now that so many more people have joined, if everyone can mute themselves. So if people want to announce like where you're from in the chat, etc. Also, so we're going to talk for about an hour or so, and then we'll field questions. So if you have questions, though, put them into the chat, and Jen and Grace will field those questions, put them into a document for us to answer towards the end. Also, I did a pretty extensive document with Kurt in advance of this. I'm going to be publishing that to the Substack with a lot of extra details that we're not even going to go into, but probably everything that we're going into. Kurt also made a deck for this presentation, which we're going to show excerpts from, but that's also going to be published to the Substack. The recording will be published to the Substack, and a transcript of this will be eventually posted to the Substack. So you can kind of just enjoy the process, take some notes, but don't get too worried about writing everything down, because there will be many ways that this case study will be available to you afterwards. Okay, great. So first release, festivals, first part of your release. What was your strategy for festivals?
Our strategy for festivals was to get in the biggest festivals that we thought would accept us, basically based on when the movie was done. So, we thought initially it was going to be done in 21, but it was just, it's a lot of After Effects and a lot of special effects to composite everything together. So it took about a year later. By the time we felt like it was festival ready, I think we tried for TIFF and South by Southwest and like some just in Sundance, like bigger ones we had heard of. We got declined from all of those. And then we finally got kind of squeezed into Fantastic Fest 2022. So Fantastic Fest is this amazing festival in Austin. So we were really happy about that. What was a little less amazing, and this was just totally a carryover from COVID times. Remember, this is like October 20 or late September 2022. We were in a virtual screening. So we were in this series called Burnt Ends that a programmer had put us in. And so we didn't get the chance to see our movie in theaters at our festival debut, which was a little bit of a bummer, right? You want to see your movie in theaters with an audience.
Right, right. And when did it start? When was the first public screening of it where it was actually in person?
Yeah, so about a month later, we got into a festival in Mexico City called Morbido, and we won the bronze award, one of the bronze skull there. So third place best film. That was really exciting, right? We won a cool award, and then from there though, we kind of just kept submitting to a ton of festivals just through Film Freeway, any and all festivals. Our strategy just basically became play in as many places as we can. Um, and we'll see what happens.
Right. So then how was that festival strategy fitting into your overall goal of making money? Like, what was your intention? What were you trying to accomplish with that festival strategy?
That I think it's calling it a strategy is funny because I think for us it was like we're not really sure. We're testing the waters. We're getting stuff out there. We're starting to talk to distributors in the background. Like we're not getting to the film festivals yet at this stage of early 2023 now, where there are like a lot of distributors to meet. We're playing in Beloit, Wisconsin. We're playing in Eau Claire. We're playing around the Midwest, Omaha, that kind of thing. And but we were able through some contacts like get to some distributors. So we were thinking, okay, let's keep playing it at festivals, just because it's really great to just get the movie out there. And then let's start talking to these distributors via Zoom, just taking generals via Zoom and pitching the movie. Um, and we got a lot of great responses from a lot of these distributors, and they were kind of dream brands like Oscilloscope and IFC. Like they really loved the movie, but what they told us over and over again is like, we have literally no idea how to bring this to market. It's a black and white dialogue-free movie with no stars in it. Like hilarious. And then we got told it was too long, right? We got told it just people don't watch black and white, like all kinds of things that would just make it a real uphill battle to like bring it to market.
Yeah. Did you try to get a sales? I mean, typically filmmakers will try to get a sales agent, especially if money is their objective. That's one of the first things out of the gate before talking to distributors. Did you try to get a sales agent at the very beginning before like your premiere? Like, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we didn't even know about that. We were pretty ignorant on that front, like we had heard of like international sales reps. People said, hey, you should try to get that. But I don't know why. We just never really heard of like a domestic sales rep. So we were repping ourselves, essentially, um, and just knocking on doors until people would respond. But we never got, I wonder if with a sales rep, if we would have got to more of the majors, even like a Tubi or something like that, or a Hulu, if we would have gotten a little bit higher up there. Not really sure. Yeah, we just didn't know about that.
Right. So then talk about it. You got a couple of offers like while you were on the festival circuit. So can you talk about those?
Yeah, absolutely. So some offers started coming in, and they were, I think a lot of people, if you've had this experience and you're listening to this, have probably experienced that the minimum guarantees, the MGs, or what in publishing would be like an advance, those were low. They were in the tens of thousands. I think our highest MG we were offered was for something like $35,000. And a lot of the distributors at the level that we were talking to, again, were mostly interested in putting the movie on video on demand. Maybe four-walling or renting a theater or two to get reviews. Like sometimes you just need to be in theaters to get reviews in certain big publications. So a lot of the strategy was, let's do that, and then we'll go like kind of either day and date or really quickly to video on demand and try to make a concentrated 2 or 3 week window where we get people to know about your movie. And at a certain point, we just really fundamentally believe like we made this movie for so cheap. Like we this movie is so inexpensive. There's got to be some way to make this money back. Because we would do math on the minimum guarantees and the splits, and we would read them over with our lawyer. And it was really hard for us to see a way that the movie was going to make money back, just kind of going into the digital vacuum in a quick fashion, maybe over time, right? But so we had some tough conversations. I mean, there were members of the film team who thought this is the best we're going to get. Let's go with it. We don't know what we're doing. And I really have to credit Mike Cheslick, the director, for like kind of sticking to his guns and saying, no, guys, like we can figure out how to do this ourselves. We can make this work. These distribution deals just aren't quite working out. So, you know, um, we
Like,
were, yeah, go ahead.
no, I think you also mentioned that you you knew that the day and date wasn't right for you, that there was that, and if you can talk a little bit, I think you're kind of talking, just getting to talking about that, but just cutting to the chase, that
Yeah.
I think in your gut you knew that there was an audience for this film, and there was a way to see this film in public. And this is in a sense one of the things I was going to ask, like what was the benefit of the festival release? And maybe that, I think that ties into, I think that's where we're at now. Like what worked in the festival release and what was instructive to you about the festival release.
Absolutely. So what the festivals did is it showed us we had something on our hands too. Like it was resonating with audiences. People were laughing, cheering. We got standing ovations. We were picking up, awards, best director, best feature. Like we were convinced, not only from the beginning we knew that we loved our movie, but we were starting to see like, hey, the market also seems to love our movie, right? Like once people see it, they tell friends about it. It's a bit of an experience. It's unlike any other movie you've seen. So the festival circuit really was a bit of a proving grounds and a prototyping grounds. We also, and I'll get to this later in the release, but we also started doing some of the antics or the eventized portions of screenings at festivals where we would bring the mascot costumes out. It's great to have mascots in your movie because people will be at festivals wondering like, what the hell is that beaver doing walking around? And who is that guy wearing a giant foam raccoon hat? Like, what is happening here? So, if you want, Mike always says, if you want the best advice at a festival, wear a giant hat so that people have a reason to talk to you. So we did that, and we were able to network with people. We were able to have conversations with other filmmakers. Everyone was very open and honest with what they were dealing with distribution. So we learned a lot. The year of being in festivals was really critical, and it kind of became our school for learning all this stuff.
Right. And then was there any way, did you guys do any audience engagement? Did you do anything about kind of reaching out to audiences in the cities that you're in, or you just, the festivals did that and you showed up and there were crowds? And like, can you talk a bit about if you did any kind of audience engagement at these festivals, not at the screenings like you just talked about, but in advance, a way to did you do any work to get butts and seats at the festivals?
Yeah, I'd say by like February, March of 23, as we were doing our festival run, we were just getting smarter and smarter. We launched our social media finally, right? So we started building our social media. We started making, if we would get accepted to a festival, we would do a post with a cute little graphic. Depending on what the festival was or where it was located, we would start doing parody posters of other movies with our beaver in them, based on the location of the festival. And that really got a lot of traction on social media. And that's a tactic we use a lot later. Um, and like we started engaging with people, and also we started selling merch. Like we pretty quickly, um, when we would show up to a festival and do Q&As, we would bring T-shirts and posters and that kind of thing. And so we started picking up some money along the way too, which helped fund travel. Travel gets expensive, and becoming a little more of a sophisticated operation.
And so in a sense, you had said that you kind of were prototyping the merch as well. You realized that there was a demand that your audience had a demand for the merch. And were you kind of also experimenting even at the festivals as far as what merch worked and what merch didn't work, what sold better, what didn't sell better?
Yeah, I mean, it was posters and t-shirts. We didn't do a lot of experimentation. We were just like there's so much going on that we kind of just went with your basic stock products. So large poster, small poster, t-shirt, very, very simple. But we made it all cool. Like it was cool stuff. It was stuff you wanted to own. And that's when, speaking of audiences, our second audience started emerging that I was seeing. Is like, oh, these are like collectors of culture. These are like nerds, anime fans, geeks, weirdos, like just like my kind of people, like really fascinating human beings that were like kind of obsessed with this weird, quirky little movie that no one was hearing about or talking about. And
And
they love merch,
how
right?
about that? And so I guess talking about the audience, like how was that?
Yeah.
How about that middle-aged dad audience? Did they show up?
Not not as much. I mean, when they did, they loved it. I like to say we have a lot of people that love silent films love the movie. People that love like Rick and Morty love the movie, and Adult Swim. And so it was really resonating with a large swath of people. The
But
Midwest
very
Dad audience
interesting,
didn't come out to a lot of the festivals, so
right?
I don't know how we did there, but
I asked that because a lot of filmmakers, like you have a conception of what your audience is when you're making the
yeah.
film, but then, when the rubber hits the road, when you start bringing it out, you start going, oh, maybe that's not the audience, and you start discovering all these other audiences. And luckily for you, a lot of the audiences are really identifiable niches, that you can
Mhm.
really target in a sense, which isn't true for many films, but it's, that I think was probably very helpful to you. Um, and did you do
Yeah.
anything to collect audience data at the festivals, like collect email addresses, collect reactions from people, anything like that?
Yeah, so we did a lot of, we filmed and got pictures and we split up the work too. Like I would go to some festivals, Mike would go to some, Rylan would go to some, other members of the filmmaking team would go to others. And I always encourage people to take a lot of pictures, try to get people talking about the movie on camera so we can share it on social. And then we did have an email list the whole time. It didn't really blow up until the following year, but we had it out there. And so we're slowly gathering,
Right,
slowly gathering
right.
people.
Right. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So, and then any other kind of lessons learned from the festival circuit or the festival release?
Um, just that I think, one thing I think we'll do a little differently next time is I don't know that it was necessary for us to show up in person to every single festival. This is just totally a human thing at this point. Like by the time we got to the following year, we were already in a year and a half into releasing this movie after 4 years of making it. So we were a little exhausted and we probably could have saved a little bit of our energy by not traveling to every festival, especially because the festivals weren't paying us to come out. We were just doing it. Um, and I think we could have conserved some energy there. But otherwise, I think we covered pretty much everything from the festival run.
Right. Did you ask festivals to cover travel or to pay like a screening fee? And did you make
Yeah,
any revenue from the festivals?
yeah. So once we hit Fantasia Fest in July of 23. And Fantasia is an amazing festival. And I got smarter and I hired a PR person, and we got a little bit of buzz. And then from there, the attention of, like, I would say our reputation among other curators and film festival programmers really rose. So now it was a really cool flip moment. Now we were getting people coming to us and saying, "Hey, we want to play your movie at such and such festival in Egypt and here and like all around the world." And they were often willing to pay, a screening fee, a couple $100, like nothing crazy, but a nice thing that helped us cover costs as we were going.
Right. Do you remember like what your total revenue from screening fees from festivals were?
I
I think
mean,
that's
maybe
I
a
did
total
math
of around
the
like, yeah, like $3,000 to $5,000 probably in total. Not a ton, but again, just enough to kind of cover some of our costs.
Yeah, yeah. So talk a little bit about the deal that you made at the end of the festival run, the distribution. Well, there's two. You picked up talk about the sales agent that you picked up, and then talk
Yep.
about the distribution deal that you made at the end of the festival run.
So at Fantasia, a few people had referred us to these folks, Raven Banner. They're out of Canada. We met up with them. We met with a few like international sales reps at these bigger festivals, like Fantasia is an industry festival. Sitges is an industry festival. So we formed we sold our worldwide rights. We kept North America, Canada, US, and Mexico. And then we gave our worldwide rights to be represented by Raven Banner so they could sell them around the world because we just didn't, that seemed overwhelming to us. So we made that deal. And then over the course of the year, we had a few other offers. And one of the offers we had was from Cineverse, Fandor, specifically Fandor, which is like one of their many streaming services. And it was for a $15,000 MG for all North America rights. And what we did, by the end of the fest, we were seeing how well it was doing at festivals. We had seen how fun it was when we would like have the Beavers show up. That we were like, okay, I think we're gonna self-release theatrical in North America. I
Don't
think we're
say
gonna.
self-release.
Okay, sorry, yeah, you coached me on that. We're going to
Hybrid release.
we are going to release
You're going to
the movie
distribute the film.
ourselves.
Yeah.
We're going to distribute
No,
the movie.
you're just gonna distribute the movie. Just own the distribution. So
All right,
yes.
so we're going to distribute the movie. But there are some things that we don't know how to do, right? So there's an important partner called Film Hub, and I highly recommend anyone check out Film Hub. What Film Hub lets you do is they take 20% of your income, but they will populate your movie to a bunch of different platforms. So you like upload your movie once and then they take care of the rest. Very simple. They don't do marketing for you. They're not gonna like put a bunch of spend behind your movie, but they'll help you get on the platforms. So we forged a relationship with them, and the reason we were able to do that is with the Cineverse Fandor deal. They were very kind in negotiating, where I was able to what's called carving out. So you carve out certain rights from the deal. And the rights that we carved out were theatrical, of course, physical media, which we knew we really think our audience is like a lover of physical media. Um, we carved out merchandising rights, and then we carved out something called TVOD, which is transactional video on demand. And we gave Fandor basically everything else in North America. So I can kind of, I don't know if we want to transition to then what the strategy became, but so those were the partners in our hybrid distribution.
Right, right. So,
Yeah,
okay, so I think let's move on to the road show and
cool.
theatrical. And so what was the overall strategy of your theatrical release?
So we looked at it as the release. So it was like, how is theatrical going to turn, or how is the roadshow going to turn into wider theatrical? Is it going to turn into uh, streaming, etc. So we looked at the whole thing and tried to make an arc. I called it like the snowball technique, where it would just be a snowball rolling downhill. And so, I don't, do we want to pull up that
I was
Windows
just gonna
graphic?
say, let's pull up that
Yeah.
graph. So, let's,
So the
let
graphic
me,
John's pulling up came right from my strategy deck as we were just trying to organize everything. So this would have been in November, December 23. Um, I knew, so we had $9,000 from Cineverse and Fandor. And then we had, I went back to our investors and I said, hey, I think I need some seed funding to do the marketing of the film. We're so close. Look at how great the festival run went. Like, let's do this. So I raised another $20,000 from investors. So with that $20,000, we did two things. First thing we did is we rehired the publicist we had worked with, Justin Cook, who's amazing, and everyone should work with him. Um, and Justin did our
Justin's about to get, Justin's about to get 100 emails.
I did warn him that I was going to drop his name. So, but he did an excellent job. He's been in the business for a long time. Really cool guy. Knows genre filmmaking really well and like kind of gonzo filmmaking. Like, so if you've got a unique movie, he's a really great publicist. So we hired him for months, right? Like instead of just like giving him like 1 month to work with, I asked him, "How do you do your best work?" And he said, "If I just have time, if you give me like 3 months, 4 months, 5 months to like, if you just give me 1 month, I can't guarantee you I'm going to get a lot of press placements. But if you can give me some time to work with, I'm going to do it." So we did that, and then the second, I think the most important move we made is we hired a theater booker, whose name is Jessica, and Jessica has been in the business forever. Music Box Films, a friend there, was kind enough to pass along her information to me, and she really helped guide our strategy. So, for those of you who don't know, like the theatrical business, it's really hard to just go to a theater owner and say, "I want you to play my movie." Sometimes it's easier if you're going through a booker who has those relationships. So we also use the rest of the $20,000 to pay her for a few months to start ramping up our theatrical bookings. And
Right.
so,
So the team
yeah, go
that you
ahead.
brought on board for the theatrical was
Yeah,
the booker, Jessica Rossner. Someone just said, Jessica who? Jessica Rossner.
yep.
And you were handling social and everything. For the theatrical, you were handling paid and organic social, correct, yourself?
Yeah,
Because you,
yep. So the team was, a film publicist who knows all the ins and outs of like our niche, and then a film booker who knows all the independent theater bookers across the country, right? So you hire people that have expertise you do not have. But an angle I had and an expertise I had is that, I have a team that does social media marketing and design and that kind of thing. So that was a huge advantage for us. If I didn't have that, I would have just hired someone to do that. And then I personally and Mike and Ryland, like I would run the social media. Mike and Ryland put on a show. They put on a great show, which we'll talk about in a second here.
right, right. So here I have the graphic up, so which talks about, I have I don't know whether, can you see it, Kurt, on your
Yep, I can
screen?
see it. Yep.
Okay. So do you want to just talk it through a little bit?
hmm Yeah. So first was the Great Lakes Roadshow, which we branded, and it had its own special poster, like a tour poster with all the dates on it. We did 14 shows from Minneapolis to Toronto, going around, Lake Michigan, basically, up through Rochester and then up to Toronto. And every night we would show up and we would do, literally during the movie, like Beavers would run through the audience at certain moments, and Mike would do a really hilarious Q&A where he was kind of half roasting the audience, but then a beaver would interrupt the Q&A, and then Ryland would like tackle it and do wrestling moves. Like it was just the circus basically came to town every night. And we were really, really targeted with all of our advertising and our PR in every city, because I had a suspicion that if we could really pack those roadshow venues, that would be evidence for more theaters around the country to book the movie. So it was a grueling 2 weeks. It was, 6 guys in a van driving around in the cold of the Midwest. It's January to February. But lucky for us, it really kind of blew up. We sold out almost every night, and in some cases, these were like 1,200 seat theaters, like the Oriental in Milwaukee or the Music Box in Chicago. And then we were really upping our merch game. I hired someone just to be the merch guy, and every night we would sell almost $1,000 in merch too. It was kind of crazy. So that paid for the whole road show, and we really started seeing attention spike. Now, like word of mouth was starting up, more critics were noticing it. Our PR guy was like getting people into theaters, but also getting reviews up on Rotten Tomatoes, getting it out to as many journalists as he could. So the snowball really started rolling then.
Okay. And then you shifted into more traditional, your New York and LA opening after that.
Yep. So based on the strength of that, and I think actually in one or two cases, even a little bit before we started the roadshow, our booker was able to secure us not through four-wall, not through renting, like an actual this ticket split deal with IFC theaters in New York, in Greenwich Village, and Lemley in LA. And so we like really the cool thing, I'll never forget this day, like a cool thing that happened in the middle of all that is that a writer from the New York Times, Eric Peipenberg, who was originally from Cleveland, actually heard about it through the Cleveland screening and was like, what's going on here? And so he's like, I want to do a story about what you guys have been doing when you get to New York. So we flew out everyone to New York. We put on a really big show at the IFC, to a really fun house. And we got a New York Times feature. And we were even on the print edition. Like there's a little beaver preview in the bottom of the front page in the art section. It was absolutely crazy. Um, and so that happened in New York, and then when we got to LA, I actually sprang for like a bit of a red carpet. It was a fur carpet. We got like just like some fur and laid it down on the sidewalk, not real fur, and a little step and repeat. And I got the Getty Images photography crew there, and it was all official. And that's when things really started blowing up. Like we got a lot of good coverage in like the LA Times and in Variety. And a lot of those theaters then too, the cool thing was as we were trailing, a lot of the theaters that we left would keep the movie in theaters longer. So if they had a really good screening, they would like bring it back for a couple nights a week, right? And then it was a lot easier of an argument for my booker to make. Like, look at all the press this is getting, look at what's going on. And so now we're playing in all these cities across the country. And that was really, really cool. And I think
How many cities,
go ahead.
cities total did you hit?
Well, we're still, yeah, I think to date, I think back then it was probably getting to like 100, 150 different screens, never more than like 33 at a time. We were never like widely available in one week. It was really, which kind of actually I think helped because a lot of people would like miss when it was in theaters and then try to get it back. And so, yeah, but now I think we played in over 300 screens across the country and growing. We're still in theaters, technically. We're still in our run, which has been really exciting.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you guys apply for Academy Award, by the way? I didn't ask you this before, but you have a big enough theatrical. That would be hilarious to get you guys into the Academy portal.
Yeah, I've heard that to like do an Oscar nomination campaign is like hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I think actually,
Yes.
I actually don't know that we have been eligible because I think you have to play for like 7 straight days. Actually, we did in LA, so yeah, we could try it. Anyway, we're applying for the Gotham and the Independent Spirit Awards and some of those, but not the Oscars.
Okay, I'm going to
We
take
should.
this, and then I'll potentially bring up the screen.
Yeah.
Again, but this is actually a pretty short. Just looking at this, like you look at January, you start the road show for 2 weeks, then February, March, you're wide, and then you're already setting your VOD date. So you already set your VOD date, I presume, at the beginning of this tour, because you have to set your VOD date generally at least 3 months in advance. So
Yep.
you're setting this theatrical window, which is basically a 2.5 month theatrical window for right before VOD. Did you think at all of extending that theatrical window at the time, like having a longer theatrical window before going on VOD?
Yeah, I mean, and we did. So, I mean, this is the graphic. We thought it was windows at the start. One window opens, the other one shuts. But truly, it actually, other than the roadshow, it just built on, it kind of layered on top of each other. So the biggest theatrical week we had originally was actually the second week of April, right before we went on video on demand on April 15th. We were originally planning on going on video on demand on April 1st, but we pushed that back by 2 weeks. Like again, it
Okay.
was really cool that Film Hub was able to get that done for us. Fandor pushed their release back a little bit. Um, and then after we went on VOD, to everyone's amazement, theaters still kept getting packed, and we kept getting booked. So
Yeah.
I think we're maybe a month away from actually having made more money at the box office after we went on streaming than before, which is a kind of a rare
Wow.
feat today. Yeah,
Pretty pretty rare, but it just
yeah.
shows that there are people want to see movies in theaters, and there's certain kinds of films that people want to see in theaters and don't want to see it on their small, tiny little screens or even their screen. They want to see it, especially this film is a film that you want to see with other people, you know.
It's a kind of film you want to experience with other people in a theater. And I think also just like I think we're thirsty for that. I think we need these like third spaces that we're going in a room with a bunch of strangers and just laughing. Comedy is best in a theater.
Yeah. So everyone remember this. We're going to get back to this little section here, the 1 week of TVOD before the Fandor release, when we get to the VOD section. Although actually, I have to kind of start. I have a few more questions, so I'm going to stop the share.
Yep.
And so I want to talk about. So what do you feel? What were you doing? So what do you feel worked and what do you feel didn't work during this theatrical?
I mean, a lot of it worked. Like a lot of what we did worked. Social media really worked. Paid advertising really worked. PR really worked. Things that didn't work, we learned really quickly that it's a lot of logistics. I will say, like the learning curve for the theatrical run in the beginning was a lot of logistics. How do you get posters shipped out? How do you get DCPs shipped out? How do you get DCPs made? What happens when a theater in Spokane is having a problem with a DCP? They can't download it, but there's a hard drive in LA that we can maybe overnight up here. Imagine that times, and it's growing and growing and growing. So I think what didn't work so well at the beginning was our logistics. Now we ironed those out, but it was it got a little hairy there for a moment. And then yeah, I don't know, man. I just like everything seemed to work. It's hard sometimes to know what worked and didn't. It's hard to go back and know like did everyone who saw an ad buy a ticket? We had good click through rate, but then when they got to the theater's website, did they buy a ticket? We don't know.
So let's
Um,
just talk about how you engage
yeah.
audience. So first, so you already talked about your publicity,
Hmm.
your EDS. So there was national and regional. You started off with regional publicity that then
Yep.
led to national publicity. So you're organic. So you created some pretty interesting content during your theatrical run, right? And you were talking about that one of the ads. What was the most that a cut down of your trailer actually wasn't the most successful ad that you ran? What was the most successful ad that you ran?
I mean, we tried a bunch of things. We had this really funny sort of riff on Alex Jones conspiracy theorist character that Mike played raving about beavers and how beavers are taking over the world. And that we ran that ad a lot. That got a lot of people sharing and like it's cool when people comment and share an ad, like that they know it's a paid ad when they see it.
Right.
But then also I think most effective one was along the road show when we had all these packed audiences laughing. I just took we took iPhone footage of that and spliced it together into like what I guess I would call like a testimonial video where people outside the theater are like, wow, what a great movie. That was amazing. You should come. And I saw Triple R do that in Variance Pictures. He put that out, used that tactic well, showing people in your theater like having a great time. We
Yeah.
let them know
Yeah.
we were filming. It wasn't
And so
creepy.
was that also, did you use that as organic, but you also use that as a paid social clip, right?
Yes. Yep. Yep. And the other thing I did unpaid is if I noticed a post was kind of getting a lot of heat and engagement, like we kept making these parody posters, which we'll show them here at some point. But like my team did such a good job on those. Those got so much organic share that sometimes I would just put like 5, 6, 7, $8 behind a post that was doing well. And it's amazing how if you just nudge the algorithm a little bit, well, it's not amazing, it's their business model, but like, if you do that, you can get pretty far. So it was like strategic targeted, paid social that was like planned, and then it was like a little bit of boosting a la carte as I was just like on my phone and seeing what was going on, that
So
kind of
did
stuff.
you, I love this quote when we spoke previously that
Yeah.
platforms are attacks, essentially, yeah, can you talk a little bit about that?
So something that I think, and I have to tell clients this a lot too, is like something that you need to know about social media these days, like it changes. And these platforms are basically kind of pay to play now. Like if you just have a Facebook page or an Instagram page and you make a post, the chances of every single one of your followers seeing it is actually pretty low these days. So like your follower count doesn't really matter that much. How you need to be thinking about it is everyone has a feed and everyone's scrolling through a feed, and how do I push into that feed? How do I get people sharing because they're going to see content from their friends? So when I call it attacks, that comes from like Scott Galloway. If anyone listens to him, it's just harder and harder and harder to be seen on social media or Google search or any of this stuff unless you're paying money,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
So let's talk about, when did you start your paid ad strategy?
Paid ad strategy would have started for the roadshow. We didn't do any paid advertisement or anything for festivals because festivals have a built-in audience. There's no reason to, right? You don't need to push. They're already doing that for you.
Right.
And so in conjunction, we specifically picked theaters, number one, that have an audience that'll just come out and see whatever. So like Music Box, Oriental, they have email lists, they have newsletters, they're playing the trailer. And then you just give it a little bit of air cover in every city. So we're not talking a lot of money, maybe $100 tops, depending on the size of the city, to get your brand out there and get it in people's feeds. And
Right.
that's
Right.
basically what we did. It wasn't any more sophisticated than that. It's just like picking the geographies that you're targeting and a little bit of demographic. Like I usually go a little broad. I'm not like, okay, 26-year-olds that like anime. I don't go that tight. It'll be like a range of like 18 to 55, like a big range.
And do you feel like
So
that keeps your, because that'll also help keep your ad rate down, like your ad spend
yeah.
down or your CPR rate, they'll keep that down if you go a little broader. So, because you mentioned like you did all of Eau Claire, you spent $50 in Eau Claire, right? So
Hmm.
somewhere in these towns, you're spending 50 to $100. But
Yep.
then when you went to New York and LA, you ended up spending more.
Yeah, New York and LA, we hammered it because again, just by the nature of those two cities, LA and New York are full of other content creators, other artists, other people who like they have followings and they'll talk about it. So it makes sense to flood those markets a little bit more. Plus, they're just huge, right? So I mean, we spent probably $2,000 or $3,000 in New York unpaid, two or three or $4,000 on LA unpaid. We went higher. But if it was like Baltimore, it'd be like $100, and that would do fine. Like we would get people clicking on the link and that kind of thing. It was good.
Yeah, and you mentioned that when you started out, you felt like you were overspending a little bit on paid ads to get butts and seats, and then kind of tapered that off after a while. That
Yeah,
you
exactly right.
right,
Yeah.
yeah,
So I mean, if you're spending if you're spending $1,000 on advertising and social media and you're only doing one night only screenings, like, you're not making money. And so on the
right,
road show, like we didn't make money on the road show. We spent money on the road show and we invested it. And luckily we made it back through merch sales and ticket sales. But in the beginning of getting that snowball rolling downhill, when it's not being carried by word of mouth, you have to sort of create the word of mouth. And then at a certain point, and you'll just feel it, you'll start seeing box office reports come back and you'll be like, we didn't even do any advertising there. What happened? Then your movie's just like in culture. But it took a while to get it there.
right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about influencer marketing.
Yeah.
Which I've been starting to talk about more and more over the last couple of years, and I think you did it in really. Can you talk about what you did there? You actually hired an influencer agency to help
Yeah.
your influencer marketing.
Yeah, I asked my publicist about influencers and if that was part of his, and he said, well, that's not really like my angle, but I know these guys, Team Click in LA. And so we went to Team Click and just chatted with them, and they have all kinds of different ways to do influencers. We didn't have a ton of money, so we did one of their cheaper packages, which was like $5,000. And for $5,000, they have this whole roster of influencers around the country. And you just pick like the ones who talk about movies and we sent out like 50 packages. So, and the packages had merchandise in them. They had a link to the video on demand launch. And, basically, if you can be funny and entertaining, like we just put a letter from Jean Kayak, the main character from the past, writing a letter to an influencer in the future and leaving him like one small bit of beaver fur, like a beaver pelt in a manila envelope. And, it was funny. Like people read it out to their followers. Like, they'll just do their stories and they'll be like, here's all the shit I got from brands today. And they talk about it.
Right.
And that was the cheapest way. So we didn't like pay them or tell them what to say. Some people maybe got the package but didn't do anything. They're not like obligated to. They usually do it. But so we did that. The other thing we did is we invited some influencers to our LA premiere. And this one, Nikhil Clayton, I'll never forget, like he did a rave about it on TikTok that was hilarious. Like it's so cool seeing other people just bring their own voice to your marketing. And I think that's the best thing about influencer marketing is like, or creator marketing. I don't know what to call it, but like they're bringing their own angle of creativity to your marketing campaign. And it's really cool to see that. And then what happens is you get this illusion of like, if your marketing doesn't all look the same, like some people talk about brand consistency, and I think you need to keep some things consistent. Like we always had the Hundreds of Beavers logo. The beaver itself was a distinctive brand asset that was very consistent. But then everything else kind of just looked like chaos. It had this feeling of like grassroots, and that's the cool thing about influencer marketing.
Cool. So I want to get to, because we're already at 250.
Oh my gosh,
I know.
crazy.
And then I'm just, actually, do you have a hard out at 1:30 or can you stay a little bit longer?
No,
Okay.
I'm just at a WeWork in Pasadena, so they're letting me stay as long as I keep paying.
Okay, good. So,
Yeah.
but what do you feel like, are there things that you would have done differently? Because everything in your theatrical seems like it would just work magically perfectly, in a sense. And you grossed, what was your total worldwide box office so far today?
So worldwide box office is sitting around 650, and about $500,000 of that is here in the United States. And then from all of our other, from merchandise and TVOD and all these things, we're probably sitting at around like $900,000 gross right now.
Yeah, so we'll get to TVOD in a
Oh, I'm
second.
sorry. Yeah,
Yeah, just want to talk about that.
jumping
And
ahead.
then of that theatrical gross, especially the 500 grand, you're
Yeah.
getting about 35 to 45% of that
Yep.
because
Yeah. So you're making when we showed up in person, we did 50-50 split on ticket sales. And then outside of that, we give very favorable rates to theaters because like I think studios come in at like 80-20 in favor of the studio sometimes. And we would do like 60-40 mostly, somewhere around there. So we would make
yeah,
40%. So yes, we
right.
don't get all of the box office, right? We get like about 40% of it
Exactly.
on average. Mhm.
Just for anyone, just to make that just to make that clear. And then what is there anything that you would do differently with the theatrical, with the road show or with the subsequent theatrical?
I wrote this down because I what would I do differently? Hold on, where did I put it? Oh, here it is. So doing differently with theatrical, there were a couple things we learned. Number one, there are like I kind of wish we just would have bit the bullet and done some of the investing in some of the software that you need to like get box office reports automatically, so you're not emailing people all the time. I cannot remember the name of the software, but it's like the payment system all the theaters use to report on their box office numbers. So we ended up
Right.
just kind of doing that manually, and I really that sunk a lot of time. But my Jessica was awesome enough to do it.
Mhm.
And then any chain bookings, like so people would be like, we really wanted to invent this, and they would put it in like a regional chain theater, not like an indie theater with a newsletter and that kind of stuff. And more often than I mean, we had some success in chains, but more often than not, our movie is just not like a chain movie, and we wouldn't have as good as screenings in those. So uh we kind of learned to just avoid that and stick with like indie mom and pop theaters from around the country.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, yeah. Which I advocate because those indie mom and pop theaters need business, and in order to
They
survive.
re we are good business partners for indie mom and pop theaters because they're doing it for the same reason we are, and it's to make like really interesting cinema and show really interesting cinema. And they have an audience that wants to come out and see interesting cinema. So
Right.
yeah,
Okay,
they're great.
so let's move on to the VOD. So what was your
Yeah.
strategy for the VOD release?
Mm. So VOD was we were going to be on Apple and Amazon for rental or purchase, and we wanted to keep that price at premium, so $9.99 and $19.99, because we had a window. This is where one of our true smallest windows actually existed. We had a window of a week before Fandor launched their subscription video on demand version of the movie. So in that week, I wanted to capture all the demand we had sort of pent up over the course of the theatrical run, all the people who saw it in theaters that wanted to come and like tell their friends to go watch it at home. Something we were worried about, weirdly, was that people were not going to have as good a time watching it at home by themselves. So we really encouraged like a watch party. Like the whole campaign was all about having a watch party, and we had a drinking game and all that kind of stuff. And then the last thing we did that was really important strategically, like our strategy was any influencers or YouTubers or reviewers or like people who wanted to do like big ticket items online, we told them to just wait until there'd actually be a link where people could rent it. So like
Right.
Shrefilis Productions is like a big one. They did a lovely review of the movie, and I mean hundreds of thousands of views. But we asked them to wait until people could actually like click a link and download it.
Right. So, but actually already your theatrical strategy linked to your 3 month window was part of your VOD strategy as well, because
Yep,
you're working to build up demand for a broader release through your theatrical strategy, seems like.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now, did you have a choice? Could you have made the TVOD window longer, or was that contractual that you were only allowed, did you think about pushing Fandor even further back and allowing like a 2 week or a 3 week or even a month TVOD window?
We had hoped to. Fandor was really keen to get it out in the winter, and they were already kind enough to push it into April. And I didn't want to like push them harder. I'm trying to get everyone to play, nicely in the sandbox with a hybrid release is kind of that's like one of the things you're a bit of a diplomat as the producer in the middle of all of it. The other thing, I guess I assumed that Fandor would only be advertising on Fandor, like, and one of the things I didn't understand that they were going to do, and I'm not mad at them for it, like, we'll still see some revenue, like revenue from our relationship with Fandor. But like when you would go to Amazon as soon as Fandor went up, next to the rental and next to the purchase price would be like free with a 7-day trial of Fandor. So that really started cannibalizing, so I originally thought a short window would be fine because even after it went on SVOD, it would be kind of niche, but it ended up being like everywhere that we were on TVOD too. So it really did truly kind of start cannibalizing.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah,
yes, I wish we could have done a month of TVOD, and kept it in theaters and that, but it still worked out really well.
yeah. No, no. So, so talk a little bit about so you still had PR going. So
Hmm.
did he do a bigger push for when it was broader available? Did he had he basically had I presume, being a good publicist, he had a regional strategy, then a national theatrical strategy, but then a VOD strategy. So,
Yep.
and
Yep.
I assume, and it seems like he executed that very well. So,
It's why
um,
it's so important it's why we make these decks with like we just get everyone on the same page of like, here's the moments you got to be ready for. So while he's doing PR for the theatrical run, he's laying the groundwork for the video on demand launch, which he did a great job with.
right. Okay. And then that's for the VOD launch. That's when the Team Click and the influencers kicked in.
Yep,
Um,
that's when we really leaned into influencers. Hmm.
right. So then talk about your paid ad strategy around that time because it shifted a little bit.
Yeah, it shifted a little bit, but not enormously, actually. Like
Well, you brought
we
on so
yeah.
you're still doing paid social, but then you
Yep.
also brought on Letterbox.
Oh my gosh, yes. Thank you. So glad we did this prep, John. We through the theatrical run, we actually became the second highest rated movie on Letterboxd in 2024, other than Dune. And so I reached out to Letterboxd and I was like, hey, seems like the Letterboxd community really loves our movie. This is probably a good place to advertise. And they were like, they hadn't heard of the movie. They looked at it. They looked at how many people had it on their watch list, and they were like, "Holy shit, yeah! Like, how much money do you have?" And I was like, "Not a lot, but here, what can I get for $5,000?" And they were really kind, and they gave us a tiny little bit of a break. And then we did display advertising all over Letterboxd, like, "It's finally here. Knock it off your watch list." Like, so that people right when they're in the app would get served a reminder that, hey, this movie you've been kind of hearing about and wanting to watch is now available. I think
Right.
that I think that probably did very, very well. Oh,
Yeah,
and we went out to their email list and their email subscribers. So you
right,
paid, for the amount of money, like what a great way to do targeted advertising to like a community that's like right up your alley. Letterbox
right.
is excellent.
Yeah. And so I remember you said you spent $5,000 on the letterbox
Yep.
advertising. And then
Yep.
how much did you spend on paid social for the VOD launch?
Probably like another 10, 15 or so. Like, we went back to all the markets where it had played in theaters and just hit them up again with like, hey, now this movie's available to rent or buy online. So we went to
Oh,
back to all the pockets that had played it. I don't know that we ever did a
you
true
didn't
like,
do net, so you didn't do a true, you didn't, because that isn't that more expensive
yeah,
than
you're
national?
spreading your butter over a lot thinner piece, right? So if you just click United States on TikTok and advertise, I don't know who's all going to see that, right? But if you can like hit a lot of the United States and go broad, but do it around the places where you've already played, whether it was a festival or a theatrical, you have a little better chance of like the ad hitting people who have heard about it and would reshare it and like talk to people about it.
Makes sense. And then did you
Yeah.
create a lookalike, just getting granular about the paid ads? Did you create a lookalike audience? Because you'd
Yep.
already been running ads for months. So Facebook must have fed up, put up, so in your audience targeting, besides geographic, so you had these niches that you were kind of aware of, and were you
Yep.
targeting those niches at all? Like some of the geek nerd, like, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
right?
Cinephiles and like people who like offbeat humor. Like you can each platform has a varying level of sophistication. Meta is the most sophisticated with what they let you punch in. It's less than it used to be after, thank God, after like Cambridge Analytica and all of that. You used to really be able to target. But now you do it more by interest and affinities and like you said, like lookalike groups, like people that are like your fans or in a network of your fans. And but a lot of it is still a bit of a black box question mark algorithm thing too.
Yeah.
But
Well,
but yeah, I mean,
also one of the things that hopefully we'll publish is that you're going to get your social people to print out some results. Okay, good. So
yeah,
we
yep. I'm gonna
don't
talk
have
to
to,
yeah, the Peter on our team, kind of young and up and coming and on our social team, really did a
Wait,
lot of it. And oh, and
yep.
I'm gonna see if he can do a little report on it. Like it's really granular. Like how did you target? Did you do impression based or like CPM based, or did you do click-through rate? Like how did you optimize? Like I'll see if I can get him to do that.
Yeah. Okay. So then, okay, anything different that you did on social for the VOD release, organic social? So we've covered your earned media strategy,
Yep.
your paid strategy. So for in the influencer strategy. So, but for organic social, did you do anything different for the VOD launch?
No, I mean, like I said a little earlier, we did this watch party idea, like really encouraging watch parties and then asking people to post their watch parties. Weirdly, our movie mesmerizes pets, I found out. Like, so we like some people started sharing videos of their dog just being obsessed with hundreds of beavers, and then I would share those and ask other people. You're always it's kind of all a blur because it's just very active. You're always kind of engaging, remixing content, reposting things. And so we just continue to do that. We made more parody posters because again, just like that was the thing that worked. Just putting a beaver, making a beaver version of the Chinatown poster, like that just people would reshare that. So we just kind of kept doing what we'd been doing and kind of brought in this like watch party angle to it.
Right, right. Yeah, good. All right. And then you also talked about some specialty merch that you did around merch drops that you did around the VOD launch.
Yeah, we did an April Fool's joke. We teased a really big announcement coming on April 1 that everyone assumed was VOD, but it was actually a drop of like these pretty cool raccoon hats that are kind of inspired by the movie, and we did a limited run. So we only made 100, and they were $45 a piece, and they sold out like in the first day. So we would do these we would introduce, and we've been doing that actually the whole year. We also, when people make fan art of the movie, and we really like it, we'll make a print of their fan art and put it on our merch store and then split profits with them 50-50. So it's a way to like kind of make yourself known to like another artist's fan base by doing an art collaboration with them. So we did a lot of that. That was pretty fun. Yeah, merch is like a thing where you try not to get like I don't want to like shove it down people's throat to buy merch every day. So you try to
Yeah.
make it special. You try to do these like limited edition merch drops that give people something that they know is unique, and there's only 100 of them, you know.
Yeah. No, I'm a big fan of limited editions. Did you do any signed
Yeah.
limited editions? Did you do any signed and numbered and signed editions? Or is
Only on the
that
roadshow
or is that
we had
too much for your audience? Like they actually would react negatively to especially numbered and signed.
it's too much for my filmmakers to sit and sign 1,000 posters at that point. They're so tired. You know, I just like trying to give the guys a break after the roadshow.
Well, if it's signed
um,
and numbered in limited edition, maybe you're not doing 1,000. Maybe it's more like
yeah,
100. Yeah.
yeah.
No.
Well, for whatever reason, you know, we didn't end up doing a lot of that, but we did on the roadshow. There were 250 limited edition, only 250 posters of the roadshow, and they would often be signed at the Q&A. So we did
Yeah.
like that. There's 250 people out there that have, you know, Mike and Rylan signed posters that hopefully they treasure and cherish.
Yes. So one thing that you mentioned when we spoke earlier is, you have clearly have an affinity for social because like when you were monitoring it and engaging with it all the time, during the
Yeah,
release, many filmmakers, a lot of filmmakers I know just hate social media.
yeah,
So it would hire someone to do that. And just to give people a little bit of a reality check on how much work went into that, you gave me a quote of how much the social that you did would have potentially cost someone if they hired you to do that. Um,
yeah. If I mean, and my team, right? So like designing the parody posters and doing the social media buying, and probably around $150,000. You know, if I was charging like corporate advertising agency rates for it, you know, I think we could make that tighter with tighter strategies in the future, but it's a lot of work, you know. And for me, I'm just always on my phone. I don't know. I'm always like keeping an eye on what's going on Twitter, and oh, the substance is trending. Let's do a substance parody poster and get it up really quick. You know, we're always trying to be reactive to what's happening on here. You may also call it an addiction at a certain point.
right, right.
It's-
And
I
and
like
maybe
it.
even so 150 would be the corporate rate, but even like an
Yeah,
indie, like a good indie rate would be half of that or something like that. Like
I
to
think so. Yeah, yeah. It's a ground game, man. It's just a lot of.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
why people. It's why the studios. I mean, it's not efficient. You know, it's more efficient to just do a big media buy. But there's something about the ground game, as I call it, of just like really interacting and nurturing with fans and making jokes. You know, I'm trying to be as I'm trying to take the tone of the movie and make it the voice of the social media.
right.
Um, and show up in all kinds of weird places and comment on all kinds of weird things, and you know,
Yeah.
just do
And
social
it's
media.
also, it's not, your film is especially attuned to social because everything
Yeah,
about the film is something that social just loves. And not every film is like that. Not every film
exactly.
has like social hooks, can do those parody posters like you did. Like it felt
Yep,
like your film was almost like a perfect storm of, a benefit for, that social would create in a sense. So just so that,
100%.
because it is you have one of the, truly super successful releases, and I just want people who are watching that, that there are certain circumstances that really benefited your film that would be hard to replicate, in other films.
Yeah, you can't, I mean, any movie, you kind of have to figure out what your core obstacles are going to be that you have to overcome. So for us, it was, like I said earlier, silent, black and white, no stars. Like, uh, you want me to go out to an almost 2 hour movie with no dialogue in black and white? Ugh. But on the other side, we had a movie called Hundreds of Beavers, which is hard to forget. We had mascots, we had jokes, it was funny, we had good reviews. Like, so everyone's got obstacles and strengths, and what you have to do is figure out where your film strengths lie, and then have your marketing strategy sort of match that. And that's the key. So if you just do exactly what we did on Beavers for a movie that's like a serious drama, not going to work. It'll be really weird and discordant, you know?
Right. I think that's a really great, excellent takeaway. So in terms of the results of the VOD, where are you at? Because you're still like, you're 8 months in on the VOD. Like, so
Yep.
what has been your kind of net that you've received from from the distribution?
Yeah. So we've netted about $150,000 so far. which is on Film Hub. You just hit a button and it goes to your bank account. It is beautiful. They take care of all the fees and everything. And it's gone down quite a bit as we've gone now. Fandor's taken it to Tubi, so it's on AVOD now and it's on SVOD. And it's just one of the things with distributors is you have to wait to kind of see how much money you made. So we don't actually know how we've done on SVOD or AVOD yet. We only know how we've done on TVOD, which has been about $150,000, which I think Film Hub told me we're the #1 TVOD movie on their platform in terms of revenue, which is exciting.
Yeah. And then in terms of lessons, like talk about like the AVOD, like when you made talk about the Cineverse deal now that you've done your Cineverse deal. You did the Cineverse deal, and now in retrospect, how would you have done that deal differently?
Just would have carved out one more thing, and that would have been AVOD or FAST. So it's AVOD or FAST, basically ad-supported streaming, right? So
Or
Tubi,
not or
Roku.
AVOD and FAST you would have carved out.
Yeah. I don't really see, and I still don't really fully understand the difference between some of these things, but we would have carved out ad supported because I have heard from other filmmakers that that is where there's a lot of good money being made now. As these, and I mean, you can see all the streaming companies, like even Netflix is bringing in an ad tier. So what I would have held on to that. I think we'll see money from that vis-a-vis Fandor, but
Right.
they'll take their cut. So it would have been lower. Yeah.
Is there does the Cineverse Fandor have a larger cut than Film Hub?
Yes, yeah, it's 60/40, I believe. So we get 60. But the thing is, and this is the famous Hollywood accounting thing, they might put expenses against the movie that they have to recoup before we start seeing profit. So I'm praying that they don't do too much of that. They're having a really good time these last couple of weeks with Terrifier 3, so I hope they're feeling really generous. But we'll see. Again, they got to wait to get the receipts from their partners, and they sold it to airlines, and it's a lot of paperwork. And we'll get a producer's report at some point and see how we did.
Right. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. So, let's see. I think so what's the future? What do you have coming up? You have some things coming out pretty soon.
Yes, so we have one more big push at the end of the year here. We're going to do another big push in theaters. We're working on that right now. I actually made a tweet yesterday that got a lot of engagement of asking where people wanted to see it. So our theater booker, Jessica's hard at work at getting I really just have this dream of Hundreds of Beavers playing in 100 theaters for one night across the country. I don't know if we're going to get there, but we'll try. So I really want to do that. And then our Blu-ray that we worked all summer on with our partner Cartoona is going to come out by the end of this year. I can't announce the date just yet, but it'll be a lot of in conjunction with this end of the year advertising we're doing. So that's this year. We'll probably take a little break. We're working on our next movie. The coolest thing about Hundreds of Beavers is that it opened up a lot of doors here in Hollywood for us. So we're working on another movie that we're super excited about and putting that together. And then down the road, we really want to make a Hundreds of Beavers video game. So we're in the middle of talking to like video game developers about what that would look like.
Right.
We'll
Cool.
see.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. Great. Any other before we open up questions, any other last major overview kind of takeaways?
I think if there's one takeaway I would give everyone, it's to try to be iterative in your strategy. Like take it step by step. Play in some festivals, see how you're doing. If you're having strength there and you're finding an audience, then you can further invest in the next thing and further invest in the next thing. Like try to really listen to what's happening around your movie instead of just like pushing your movie out in one big swoop and seeing what happens. I think if you can do it low and slow, as like somebody would say if they were making a brisket, like I think that's the way to do it personally. I mean, that's what really worked for us. And we even though we never changed the broad strokes of the strategy, we were constantly tweaking like little things we were doing along the way, just based on what was going on. And I think it's important to go that route.
Right. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So Scott joined us. So
Hey, Scott.
I'm gonna unmute Scott, and I'm gonna try to find Scott so that but maybe someone can find Scott.
I am next to you on my screen, but maybe on everyone else's screen I'm somewhere else. I'm wearing a coat because I'm at the Woodstock Film Festival where the Wi-Fi is not very good.
Good.
But can everybody hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, Kurt.
Hey, man.
It's a little choppy. Your voice is a little choppy, but let's see how we do. So, and I think you just froze.
All right. Well, let me just ask one question.
Okay, great.
let me ask one question, which is,
Yeah.
Kurt, how were you managing your personal and professional life as the workload of this film expanded all throughout distribution? That's always what stopped me as a producer from being as active as you have been. So I'm curious how you manage the rest of your life and how
Not,
you, yeah,
yeah, I mean, not always the best. It's a lot of, especially on the festival run, you're out there, you're networking, you're having drinks, like you're getting exhausted. It took a lot out of us, and I want to be really clear, like this is a lot of work. And it was just purely the passion of seeing how it was resonating with audiences that kind of fueled us through it. But I had the team behind me. I had a lot of people helping. We had a lot of people rooting for us. And I mean, the other thing that I don't know if I told you this, Scott, but the other thing that happened is on a few days after our festival premiere in 2022, I also had my first child. So like I had like a baby and a baby movie that I was raising at the same time, and a company that I was trying to run. But I have partners at my company, the S and the H, who are like my best friends, and they were taking care of stuff. And like my family was super supportive. We brought our 1-year-old baby to Europe for a couple festivals, and like you make it part of the family. And if you're lucky enough, like I am, and I'm so blessed to have a family and friends that really support this kind of really insane kind of stuff. You lean on your friends for support, and you try to exercise when you can. Something I didn't do quite enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good. That's a great question.
Yeah. Any other questions, Scott?
I was really struck. I mean, we have a long interview with you and the team in the spring issue, Mike and Ryland. And I think that we're one of the first independent film publications to have featured you guys. It's been interesting to me that, I mean, I felt like I had to catch up to what you're doing. And at the same time, I was there earlier than other people. And it's interesting to me that you didn't really target the usual independent publications. It didn't seem like you targeted the usual independent publications and tastemakers at the outset, that you kind of grew it regionally and then also dipping into the genre world. Where does the kind of independent film journalistic ecosphere, blogosphere, like where did that fit into your strategy, if at all?
Oh man, that would be a really good question for Justin. A lot of but he comes out of, and like the group that really supported us originally was that genre world of like bloggers and writers and influencers and film festivals, really like the Fantasia, Fantastic, Cetus, like that whole world. It's its own. I was unfamiliar with this world until we became kind of embraced by it. So we weren't really embraced originally by like the Sundance pipeline or some of the or South by and that kind of thing. So it wasn't so much strategic, as I just think like that's who we were embraced by first, and it kind of grew out of that. And I think honestly, again, because we weren't well networked as we are now, like now we kind of know everyone, and we have a profile. I just think it was a matter of not being able to, get in the deluge of, I don't know how many emails you guys get a day, 1,000, a million, like, it just gets lost in the shuffle sometimes. But I mean that the day that I had an interview printed in Filmmaker magazine was a dream, and it's up on my wall, and it was like, I can't believe my life kind of thing. So thank you guys.
Well, you're welcome.
This
Thank
all
you.
still feels kind of, it's not really, it's kind of been wild. Living the dream.
So I have a couple questions from the audience. What was the total budget for PR? And I remember and can you talk about it, like how that broke down, like, because you paid them on a monthly basis, and then there was like a total amount.
Yeah, we paid so $4,000 a month was his fee, which is very reasonable for the amount of work that he was doing, and we ended up paying him for 5 or 6 months, so 20,000, 24,000, something like that. We had the budget breakdown in the case study deck that we'll share around, and then the theater booker Jessica, who we're still paying, also gave us a sweetheart deal. She just really loved the movie. And we paid her in the beginning $3,000 a month. And then when theaters started slowing down a little bit, like we're only playing in maybe like 10 a week, she actually reduced her rate down for us, which is also super kind. It's really good
Yeah,
to, you got to pick partners and feel out partners that you feel actually passionately believe in the movie that you're making, because they're going
yeah,
to go the extra mile and do the extra little things and actually care. We talked to multiple theater bookers and multiple publicists, and the two I chose were the ones that just really seemed to get the movie and like believe in it. So they weren't going to
yeah,
quit at the first obstacle. That's so important.
yeah. And I think so total in theatrical booking, I think you paid around 22,000, you said, just to kind of like lot, and then on ads, I think you said you spent around so far about $25,000 total in ads, right?
Yep.
So and then $5,000 for the influencers. So that's kind
Yep.
of giving the broad strokes. But then the other question is like, could you have done this without your company, marketing background and team? You know, maybe it would be different, but you would have spent, that would have been really blown up the budget in a sense. That would have been like maybe 50 to 75 on organic social, which was
Yep.
normally you don't see organic social having such a huge effect on a release, just from my experience. But you were able to use it in such a way, and you had a product that was amenable to it. That, yeah. So
Well, and it didn't, you go back and look at our early Instagram posts, 10, 20 likes. It just takes time. And then all of a sudden I'll make a tweet about a sandwich I'm having for lunch and it'll get 20,000 views. It just happens organically over time. And but yeah, that all sounds about right. If so, one of the reasons I'm doing this, and I think one of the reasons you do what you do, John, is to try to help filmmakers understand marketing. The thing is, if you're a good storyteller, you're a good marketer. And if you're good at storytelling, then you know how to create. Marketing is just all about framing the movie. So if the movie's the work of art, the marketing is the frame, and you're trying to create a really complementary frame to the movie. The other thing, I was really inspired by this documentary I saw, Disturbance in the Force. It's about the holiday special. Did anyone see that? The Star Wars holiday special, like oral history.
yeah,
But what they say in
definitely.
that movie is that they talk about like all the weird shit that they did around Star Wars when it first came out, like stuff Disney would never allow the sacred brand to do now, like stormtroopers line dancing on late night and like all this just really goofy stuff. And I was like, the marketing is going to be forgotten about in 10 years. Hopefully the movie is still remembered for a long time, but like we got to just do whatever crazy shit seems to be resonating now, knowing that that'll fade with time. So
Mhm.
that's kind of how I look at film marketing. So if you just look at it like that, then you just got to find people who understand the levers, the knobs and levers of how to like responsibly spend money on social media. You can bring the creative as a filmmaking team. And honestly, so much of the creative was generated by Mike and Rylan. Like they were huge partners in like helping me do stuff that's entertaining in the marketing as well as the movie.
Yeah, yeah, cool. So there's a question here whether you're considering future road shows, which I think you already spoke about, but would you do that on future films? And then are you considering using Web3 film platforms such as Babel and Ample? Um,
I don't know what that is at all. Sounds cool. There was one called Kino, I think, that reached out to us about doing like a virtual
yeah,
like but we were like too late in our but by the time I learned about all the like virtual screenings and like I think it's yeah like the Web3 stuff, it was like too late. As far as like future roadshows where we actually show up in person, we are retired. The Beavers are retired. The guys are retired. We're off to the next movie. But we hope to play in theaters just as a movie, and we also hope that fans start bringing that to the movie themselves. And we actually have done. We did a promo in May where we sent merch out to like 30 theaters across the country, and if people showed up in costume, they got free merch.
mhm,
So like we'll do like little things like that just to kind of keep trying to encourage a culture to grow around the movie. But at a certain point, we have to leave it to the world to like do that. You know what I mean? Like at a certain point, the film has to stand on its own legs and create its own culture. And so we're not going to be like touring personally with the movie anymore.
yeah, yeah. So someone asked, how can creators determine likely demand at an early stage in the project? And related, how did you initially identify your audience and build your community? Which I think we've talked a little bit about, but just kind of curious if you have like larger thoughts about that.
So for us, it was festivals. That's the first true test you have is festivals. Test screenings are great, but they're often friends and family. So like your first sort of ecosystem of understanding who is your audience, who's resonating with the movie, how are you building community. You do that at festivals, I think. You can so, but the challenge with festivals, that's like level one. The challenge with festivals though is you have what's called a what's the economics term for it? It doesn't matter. You have a built-in audience. So like people are just showing up to the festival, right? So then your next gauntlet to get through is like, well, will people show up to theaters? Just because you played in a million festivals, actually, that did not convince any theater owners to play the movie. They didn't care. Like that doesn't matter because you're playing at a festival where people are coming out and they're already there and they're watching it. So then you got to show that you can get people to show up. How we did that was by bringing ourselves to the thing and creating an event. Then the next one is like, will people come when you're not there as a Q&A? So like there's all these like sort of, I don't know, I guess like phases of releasing a movie and getting your movie in front of audiences that you can use to sort of see who is your audience. And then at the same time build like capture them, like, you know, get them to follow you online and that kind of thing.
Right.
I hope that was a good answer.
Yeah. And then, so did you carve out your video game rights?
I think so. Yeah, we did.
Okay, good. Oh, here's a very granular question. Did you create specific social media accounts for the film, or were you operating more on the film social accounts or all your own personal accounts? And how did you engage? How did you relate those to each other?
We're kind of private folks. Like we're like Midwest, you know, we don't have like a lot of like individual brands. So like me and Mike and Ryland, you know, we didn't really use ourselves or our personalities as like parts of the promotion, right? Well, we retweet things and kind of keep it to friends, but the movie Hundreds of Beavers on all the accounts, like we just made a social media profile. I had a crazy idea at one point of like having like on LinkedIn, like Business Beaver and like having like characters or having John Kayak, the main character of the movie, having his own social account. Like, you know, we never got that far. That would have been, I think, overkill. But we started from zero, just with an account for the movie on each platform.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay.
Which I operate like it's a person. You know, they call me Mr. Beaver on Twitter.
Cool. And then how big are those platforms now? I mean, how big?
Yeah, I mean, Instagram is 7,000 followers. Twitter is 5,000 or 6,000. I mean, you know, compared to these influencers and all these folks, like it's not a large audience, but what we have is a very engaged audience. So I will frequently like, you know, I'll just make a post, and even though we have, you know, 5,000 followers, will get like, here's one that has 50,000 views. So like the audience I have is an audience that's very full of like other tastemakers and other critics and like folks like Scott and like people who will retweet things. So we get a lot of exposure, even though we have a small follower count. And I think follower count is a bit of I don't know if it's the best metric to look at for how you're doing on social.
Yeah. No, I remember when we were talking earlier, you said that your you know, the total numbers weren't great, but your engagement was through the roof, which is what, you know, it's classic social. I know Dor Dotson is in the audience here, and I think she would agree. It's like, you know, you're not looking at, you know, the numbers of your audience. It's like how engaged is your audience is the key thing, and how do you get that audience engaged? So someone has a question about production that you know, how you raised money for the film. Someone like seems like from research says you raised money from friends and family for the production. How did you do that? Did you crowdfund? Did you make certain investor deals with key people, etc.?
We did some fiscal sponsorship. So there was an organization that could take donations that could then be reinvested in small businesses. That's a Wisconsin initiative. We did that for about half of the funding. And then the rest of it was like friends and family that would throw in 5,000 to 2,000 in some cases, 10,000. Like just, I think our cap table is something like 15 people that are all like invested in the movie as equity investors. And so that's how we did it. We don't have tax credits in Wisconsin, but we wanted to shoot in Wisconsin because we kept it really, really, really cheap I mean, it was literally like 4 guys in the woods with a DSLR camera, and then Mike at his computer over the course of a couple of years just doing everything in After Effects. So that's how we kept the dollar amount really low, and then that made it very reasonable to go ask friends that like own small businesses to pitch in.
Right. And did you do any kind of like funding events, like, screening some of the film to family or to certain groups of people and raising money
Yeah,
that way?
I don't know that we raised money off an event. We have done that. We've done that on other feature film projects. So this is the fifth feature film me and my partners have produced. So we have done that in the past, but like because we've done that a few different times, we kind of just had that group together and we didn't need to like do an event. But what we did do, the guys actually, we only were able to raise about $10,000 initially. So the guys took that $10,000 and shot a bunch of like literally shot the first act of the movie. So if you watch Hundreds of Beavers, the first act of the movie is shot by Mike Cheslick. It's just him and Ryland and a couple friends in the woods. And then based on the strength of that edit, then our friends and family that were like, "What is this Beaver movie?" They saw it and they're like, "Okay, now we're in." So even though we didn't wait to raise all the money until we started shooting, we just started shooting as we got money.
Which is pretty classic old school
Yep.
indie, yeah. So I think we're almost at 3:30. I'm trying to see if there's any. Oh, I guess someone's asking exactly what your publicist did. And if you can speak to that versus Jason speaking to that. But I don't know if you have any more specifics about what your publicist did in the process of pitching, like what was his, kind of strategy and certain tactics for pitching the film.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the press releases, like he and I would work back and forth on press releases together. He helped us get our EPK together, electronic press kit, right? So just like organizing all that. He scheduling was a huge part of his job, just scheduling interviews and like helping like be a liaison to all these different journalists and setting up press days where Mike and Rylan would just sit in front of a Zoom for 8 hours and like talk to all these different bloggers and podcasts and all and what have you. So like really influential, like that's a whole bundle of work and management and people and networking and like following up. That's a whole body of work that I didn't have to even think about. And then on top of that, like, he spent years of his life building all these relationships and keeping his relationships in good standing with all these different journalists, which is, that takes work. So, yes, functionally, a lot of it is just like emailing and that sort of thing. Oh, he also like, he facilitated the entire LA premiere, brought out an assistant, help, like he was doing a lot.
Cool, cool. All right, I think that Scott, any last questions from you?
No, I'm good. This has been great. I learned so much about you guys researching the piece that we did and then running the piece, and now I've filled in so many more
Right.
pieces of the puzzle. So
Yeah, and
this has been great.
I think the
Thank
link
you.
from that. Anyway, we'll send out the link to that as well when we send out all the other stuff. So
Yeah, I would say the piece we read at Filmmaker, which is online, it's not paywalled, has a lot of the production stuff in it. So it does have a little bit more about the fundraising, but also about the timeline of the original shoot and then how that led into the two subsequent shoots that finished the
Great.
film.
Great. So I'm going to just put a plug in for my Substack. So please, if you're not a member of my Substack, please join the Substack. I'll probably put that also into an email. Also, Filmmaker Magazine, if you're not a subscriber to Scott's newsletter, I think Scott's his weekly newsletter is one of the best weekly newsletters that's out there in this business. It's, always very personal and interesting and fascinating. And then, of course, you can subscribe to Filmmaker Magazine. And look forward to hearing, Kurt, about what's, the Blu-ray drop and other things that are coming from you, plus your next projects.
We attempted to make the best Blu-ray of 2024. So we worked really hard on it, and there's a lot of great commentaries and a lot of behind the scenes. And we're big believers in physical media. So please, when the Blu-ray comes out, if you have the means of playing one, please pick it up. You'll learn a lot about the really brilliant work that Mike and Rylan have done. And, I think how I'll close out is, first of all, just thank everyone for coming. I really, it's weird to be on this side of a thing like this. I spend a lot of time like just watching and learning and being to webinars. So I feel like I still feel like I don't know what I'm doing, but that's why I'm just trying to be as transparent as possible and share. And, but my advice I would always just give everyone is focus on the movie first. Like, so much of my job as a marketer and a producer was so much easier because my good friends made a laugh out loud, fun movie that I just really believe is a great film. And everything else is downstream from that. So try not to get too tied up in knots thinking about this marketing stuff before you've just focused on making a great film that people want to see and that people have a good time coming to see.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great advice. It's kind of like what I say constantly. And I saw Scott nodding his head to that as well. It's a super hyper crowded marketplace. And so you just have to really make sure that the film that you make it is the best it possibly can be. And it's, and that potentially you've test screened it to audiences. Oh, speaking of which, I know we're wrapping up, but it's one of my big bugaboos is test screening. Did you guys do test screenings? Did you do test audience screenings?
Just with I would do it. We did not do it on Beavers. We did it with close friends though. I mean, like the close stakeholders in the film, the investors, things like that. Like Mike took a lot of notes, but we never did test screenings. The film festivals were basically our test screenings. And Mike made very, very tiny slight changes. Like I think the actual locked version of the movie that's out there now wasn't finished until summer of 23. So like we were, again, using festivals as a true prototyping stage, I think can be really important and rewarding.
Great. Okay, cool. Thanks, Kurt.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for coming. Yeah, really appreciate it. And so I'm going to be doing these on a monthly basis and, see how long I can keep that going.